Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're here for another mini-sode.
Yeah, Monday mini-sodes where we go in depth into one topic instead of kind of covering a lot of different things. And we do it in a short amount of time, 10 to 15 minutes. And today we're talking about one of our favorite things, and that is garage sales. And when you're at garage sales, there's certain things you can do to make sure that you score the best price possible. And it has a lot to do with it. The way you carry yourself, the way questions you ask, the things you do, what you're picking up and holding, how you're scanning things. There's a lot involved, but today we're going to be focusing on specifically the kind of small talk and questions that you can use in order to nail down that negotiation and make sure that you're scoring the items at the best possible prices.
Honestly, just follow the script. I would love it if people just follow the script and would tag us on Instagram.
Yeah, record yourself just doing this.
Or you know, if you haven't been on our Discord, go to patreon.com/PureHustlePodcast. If you support us, you can jump on the Discord and you just let us know and ask us questions, because I feel like one of the strengths that Mike and I have is being able to negotiate deals at garage sales. Yeah. Now, I will say this last Saturday, the Saturday before, people, I find some people are just wanting top dollar for stuff, right? Yeah. Sometimes you can't win, but a lot of the times you win. So here's the first one. This is going to throw people off. Just ask people, how are you? That's it. That will start the beginning of a better deal for you.
Yep. And that could take a lot of variations, right? It could be, how are you? Good morning. How's your day going? Any of those like small, like simple things. And how are you is just like, that's as easy as you can get. But be wise with how things are going. Like if you see them like struggling to get stuff out and they finally got this thing set up and you're like, man, I'm glad I didn't have to set that up for, you know what I mean? Like
you want to get people to smile.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You want to, I mean, it's just like any kind of interaction. You want those first impressions matter. You really only have a few moments, and you're probably never going to see these people again. But first impressions still matter here, because if they look at you as the person who's nice, fun, I mean, even something small, like you see a toy and you're like, oh, my son loves these, right? You've just made a connection with them when you're talking about stuff. They're going to, oh yeah, my grandson played with that. Now, when they look at you, you're not just this person here going to do battle with them over prices, but you're like a human being that has feelings, and you've made them smile, and it's a win-win-win.
It's funny because I'm really awkward even in the drive-thrus. Like when I order food, like people usually are like, hey, how are you? You know, can I take your order? And I always go, how are you? And it's really awkward, but I could tell the person appreciated them because they've dealt with a bunch of people the whole day. And somebody, even if they don't believe that I cared, and I do care, there's this feeling about, hey, somebody actually cares. Right. And I find that with garage sales, it goes so far, because I gotta tell you, man, our profession, whatever, like, I don't know if we're known as being the nicest people. Right now, we know a ton of incredible resellers, but I will tell you, when I'm out at garage sales, there are some people that are like, well, you can't, this is garbage. How about $5? Yeah. It's like, what? Like, no one's going to give you that deal.
This is not in good condition. And there's times when you need to say, like, they're looking at a price and they say, well, what do you think? And you're going back and forth on it. It's one thing to say, like, yeah, this is really nice. I mean, it does have some scratches on it, but I really like this. And that's a better way of saying, oh, this is just really, really bad. This is really, 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 really bad. How much you want for it? And it's like, well, if it's really, really bad, why do you want to buy it? And it just comes across disingenuous and so or rude. So yeah, don't do that. Don't be that person. You know, little things can be nice, and there's ways you can ask for and let somebody know, I can only offer you this much because of the condition, without being rude about it.
Yeah, just start off with a smile and say, how are you? No. All right, you want to handle this next one?
Sure. So the next one, this is a good question to ask. Do you have any other items that you're looking to sell? And a lot of times people are like only after a certain niche, and that's fine. If you're niched down, you've got one thing that you sell, you pull up and you're like, Legos, and then they say no, and you just drive off. But maybe you're in like a category, and so you're looking around, because a lot of times people do say, are you looking for anything in particular? Mm-hmm. That's a good, if you're like nervous and you don't want to like ask for more things, hey, do you have anything else for sale? This is a good jumping off point. If somebody says, are you looking for anything in particular? Maybe you don't see any fitness stuff outside. It's all, I don't know, toys and something else. It doesn't hurt to say, oh, I'm kind of looking for like fitness stuff, or like, DVDs, or I'm looking for electronics, or whatever it is you're looking for. because I can't tell you how many times where they go, oh, you know what? I have some of that. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
And they go in the house. And so that's a good, if you're like a little bit nervous to ask this, but there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, do you have anything else for sale? Especially if they've got the things you're looking for. If they've got a whole bunch of books and you're really into books and you've like found like 5 or 6 that are very valuable, there's chances are they didn't bring out every book in their house. Mm-hmm. They just picked a handful, and you're like, you've piled these together and you go, do you have any other like vintage old books that you'd like to sell? And they might say, yeah, you know what? I have another box. I haven't even opened it yet. Hold on, let me go check. A lot of times, some of the best deals come from stuff that's not even out in the garage sale yet.
I find the majority of the time, the best deals are when that happens, because, it's just you and the other person. The other person, usually you go back to step one, you're having a conversation, you're talking about stuff. They're like, you know what? Yeah, this person asked for this. You know what? Let's give them a deal. That's usually how it goes. Sometimes you may get the individual that's like, yeah, I didn't put this out there because I really was looking for this price on it. But I find most of the time you don't run into that scenario. All right. This one is always bundle mania, and it's could we work a deal if I bought it all or bought all of it? Now, make sure that you have all of it together, right? Sometimes it's okay on the way out. Sometimes I'll say, hey, can we throw this in here? And a lot of times people are like, sure, just take it, right? But you got to first make the deal, right? And so if I bought it all, sounds a lot better than you just picking up one item and going, how much? Now, you could pick up one item and ask how much to kind of get a feel for like, is it worth it to even try to put stuff together? But most of the time, I'll just put it all together and then we'll see where it goes. Because if you start nickel and diming each thing, you're going to be paying a lot more than if you just say, hey, what if we bought it all together?
And there will still be those people who will say, well, let's see. Shirts are $5. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shirts. Yeah. There will be people who do that. And I've had that happen to me many times. But the worst is, I can't tell you, especially when I was new or if I'm a little rusty, sometimes I just go out and I'm like, I see a couple things, like I want these 3 things. And then by the time I'm ready to leave, I found another box, but I've already said how much for this, how much for this. I'm about to leave. Oh, how much for that's, you don't want to be in that position, because then at the end, once you've got a bundle, then you say, okay, how much for everything? And you finally drop the how much for everything. Yeah. Then they say, well, I told you 5 for that, 10 for that, 4 for that. As opposed to if you just have it all together at one time, then they're looking at it as a bundle sale as opposed to, well, I've already itemized it.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good one. All right, our next one is, and here's a good one. Could we work on that price a little? A lot of times people want to say, what's the lowest you can go? What's the lowest price you'll take? And you usually don't want to start with that because you're almost forcing them to go on the defensive.
You look cheap. That's the way I see it.
I mean, it could be. I mean, maybe, but I think when you do that is you're creating a you're not giving them any more wiggle room. You're basically forcing them into a corner. I mean, eventually when you're negotiating, you want to get to where you've got the upper hand in the negotiation. You've maneuvered it well. Both parties end up happy, but you've been able to maneuver it the way you needed to. But if you start with, hey, ultimately I want to be on top, so I'm going to start this negotiation by forcing them down as fast as I can. Well, that's not usually the best place to be. Instead, hey, do you have some wiggle room on this? I like to use wiggle room. Or can you work with me on the price on this? Then when they will return with something like, I don't know, what are you thinking? That's when you give the pause. I don't know. I mean, and then you just give the awkward pause for a little bit and then let them throw out that number. If they don't throw out a number, then you give them a range, right? Because then again, you're not like backing them in a corner. If it's like worst case scenario, they just won't give you a number. Then you say, I was thinking maybe $10 to $15. Because $15 is kind of the low end that you were hoping to get. But by anchoring them a little bit lower, you're not forcing them into $10, but you're kind of giving them some wiggle room. And they're like, okay, I could do 15. When it was 15 was kind of the point you were hoping to get. So there are a lot of techniques you can use. We've done a lot of videos on that. But don't start with what's the lowest you'll take. That doesn't mean you don't end up getting there in the conversation at some point. You might get there after a time of negotiating. But when you start there, then they're like, well, I don't know. I mean, and then they're putting up the walls and they're trying to do the math. What's the lowest instead of them bargaining? And that's what a lot of them want to do. Because if they say, well, the lowest I could take is 20. And then you say, well, how about 10? I just told you the lowest I could take is 20. Yeah. As opposed to saying, oh, what are you thinking? They say 20 and you go, well, what about 10? Well, they haven't told you that 20 is their lowest yet. That's just a number they've thrown out. So you're backing yourself up in a corner in some ways when you do that.
Yeah. And so And again, just to add a little bit to that, when you ask that, could we work on the price a little, or do you have some wiggle room? Don't fill their answers. Like, there might be an awkward pause and you might say, well, what, maybe 5, huh? Or maybe like, don't say anything. You'll be amazed at how much that price can go down when you don't say anything. Right. Again, I do feel like here's where awkwardness wins, because, one party is going to feel like I need to give an answer, and whoever gives the answer first is going to end up the one that's going to be able to work into the price that they want. Yeah.
The bummer with that is there are times when the person running the garage sale is like busy and they give you a quick attention, and the next thing you know, they're talking and they're moving around and you're ready to move. And you're like, excuse me, I'm doing an awkward silence thing over here and I need you to come over and acknowledge me, but they've moved on. And so you kind of have to say this, and they're like, I don't know, give me a price. And then they move on again and you're like, and then that's when you're stuck doing the anchor, right? But when you can, you definitely, especially if you got that one-on-one conversation, don't give that first price if you can help it. And if you have to give it, do a low and a high.
Yeah,
anchor that in.
Agreed. All right, and this last one here is, I don't know, there's a lot, but it's a mini-sode. But is this what's your takeaway price? So that's another way of asking, like, what is your price to get it out of here? Right? Does that make sense?
I mean, it kind of sounds like opposite of everything we just said, except for the fact that you do get to this point potentially at some negotiations where this is like the final point where you have to say, what is rock bottom?
Yeah, but I never say rock bottom. Right. You don't say, what's your cheapest? What's your lowest? What's, I
maybe if you phrase it something like, what is it going to take to get this out of your hair so you never have to see it again?
Yeah.
Something like that where you almost make it fun.
Yeah. Well, what is your takeaway price? I mean, obviously this is organic. It's not like you have your note card and you're like,
what is your takeaway price?
Yeah. But I find that one usually seals the deal for me. Once, there's an item that's pretty expensive and they don't want to let go of it. Maybe they're emotionally attached. And we've talked about this previously, but one of my lines, whenever somebody gives me a high number, it goes, oh, it seems like you're kind of emotionally attached. And I've used that forever. And it usually stops people to think, am I emotionally attached? Nah, like I'll work a deal for you. And sometimes they're like, yeah, I grew up with it. I'm not selling this for anything less than da-da-da. And then right? So what is your takeaway price was my final addition here to the questions. So, all right, hopefully all these questions will help you make those deals at garage sales. Starting off with, how are you? Do you have any other items you're looking to sell? Could we work a deal if I bought it all? Could we work on the price a little? What is your takeaway price? And everything in between. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling late.
Peace.